G'day Bomber fans, if you are up to date with the channel you will know every few weeks I release these little VFL reviews just going over the AFL listed players and seeing how they are going over in the Magoos. We have had 13 of our listed players play between rounds 7 and 9, so here is a little glimpse into how they have gone. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, but first a super quick word from Manscaped. I want you guys to help us Essendon fans be the best looking in the comp by heading over to manscaped.com, getting whatever you want, body grooming tools, shampoos, deodorant, whatever, and if you use my discount code everything Essendon 20 you can save 20% off plus free shipping. Now onto the video. So as a team we have really struggled in these last 3 rounds. In round 7 and 9 we were hot early against Werribee and Richmond respectively and ultimately fell flat, and in the sandwich in round 8 between those 2 games we were completely blown away by the Lions. But here are the individual performances from our listed players from those games. We start with our little meatball Will Snelling, who continues to shift between the VFL and AFL side, although he plays different roles between the two. He is more of a contest grunt type midfielder in the Magoos. Against Werribee he was involved in a lot of stoppages and used his tackling pressure really well. His attacking output wasn't prominent though. Same goes for the game against Brisbane a week later. He had 27 disposals, none really that eye-catching, but he generated lots of turnovers for our defence with his pressure. This is the game that forced him back into the AFL side for the match against Richmond. So you've got to admire how well he goes between the 2 different roles in 2 different teams, inside mid in the VFL, pressure forward in the AFL. Before Kaine Baldwin was thrust into the AFL side due to the amount of injuries we had down back, he actually played up forward a little bit, as in the week before against Werribee he played about 50% down back, 50% up forward. He kicked a couple of goals, so maybe there is a bit of 2018 Kale Hooker about the guy, the ultimate swingman, but aside from that small period he has been nothing but in defence. It's good to have the opportunity there though. It's pleasing to see him play well forward and back of the ball. Now I'm filming this video before the teams are released for the West Coast Eagles game, but releasing it after, so if Bryan isn't in that starting lineup to face the Eagles, he should consider himself extremely unlucky. His numbers have been fantastic. 46 hitouts, 7 tackles against Werribee, 28 hitouts and 18 disposals in the wet against Brisbane, and against the Tigers, 35 hitouts, 24 disposals and 10 marks. The guy was everywhere. I thought he was a wingman at times. He found space that well. He worked so hard to get into good positions and moved so well around the ground for his size. He has been unreal and is surely on the cusp of an AFL call-up if he hasn't got one against the Eagles already. Super impressed with how he's going. Massimo only played the 1 game to talk about here against Werribee. He played mostly on the wing, which is where we saw him finish the game against the Tigers recently on Dreamtime, and he spent some time there against the Lions as well. I think it's because of how he went against Werribee. It's why we saw this, because he isn't defensively sound in D50, but he positioned well enough to transition back from the wing, plus his ball use is great. It's his best asset. He had 24 disposals, 17 of which were mostly effective kicks. Someone I'm really excited about, Lewis Hayes, has had a roller coaster mini period. He was really solid against Werribee and Richmond. The latter of the games he won a lot of the ball in as well. He is lean, so he gets bodied, but makes up for it with how he reads the ball in the air and uses the ball by foot. But the game against Brisbane was, I will say, a learning curve. He played mostly on Tom Fullerton, who kicked 6 goals for the game and bodied Hayes far too easily at times. It's good though. You want bad performances mixed in with the great ones so he can learn and improve from them. Alistair Lord has been pretty good these last few weeks. He kind of performs depending on personnel, so when Hind or D'Ambrosio are in the team he is quieter, but he performs better when they aren't. He was one of our best against Brisbane in the wet. He tried to inject pace into the game when we needed it and held his own defensively as well, and against Richmond he had some great rebound 50s. I like the way he is looking. I didn't see it as much last year, but he is coming along nicely at the minute. We all know Reid is currently injured. He sustained a hamstring strain about halfway through the game against Werribee in round 7. Up until that stage though, he looked really good, which is really disappointing. He definitely would have slotted right back into the seniors team with all the injuries there. It's just a really deflating injury for the guy and us fans hoping to see more of him. Guelfi was a sight for sore eyes in our game against the Tigers recently. His first game since his early season injury. He looked up and about, kicked a couple of goals, was pretty lively, but was obviously managed back from his longer than liked muscle injury, so would only have competed about half the game, I reckon. Was just good for him to be out there though. Cian McBride has had a rough period. He has been shifted around the ground a lot because of injuries to the team, but it's only hurting his chances of solidifying a spot and working with that role. His best game was against Brisbane, where he had a lot more of the ball than he usually does. He had some nice grabs in the wet. He didn't use the ball as well as you would have liked, and in the other 2 games you forgot he was playing at times. He really needs confidence in one area of the ground because he isn't having an impact at the moment. Rhett Montgomerie has slot into our defense so effectively. You just know what you're going to get every week. week. You get intercept marks, you get good contests, and some turnovers. I think once he works on his disposal efficiency, he will be closer to AFL minutes. He is our most consistent performer of the AFL listed players, a really good marking backman who clunked 8 or more in all 3 of the games that I'm talking about today. It's been a quieter month or so for Pat Voss after his fast start to the year. He has been playing on some better defences and defenders though. Against Werribee we had an undersized forward line, which meant he was often double teamed. He had 2 marks and 1 goal. Against Brisbane, the ball was barely in our forward 50. We only had a little over 30 inside 50s as a team, so he was yet again quiet, but he responded against the Tigers. He was pushing high up the ground to good effect. He was clunking them in important areas. He had 17 disposals, 7 marks and 3 goals. It was really pleasing performance because before this game he had been quiet, so it's great to see him at his pack-crashing, powerful best. Tex Wanganeen was one of our best against Werribee, I reckon, in my opinion. He had 15 disposals, 2 goals, used the ball exceptionally well. He goes missing, but when he has the pill in his hand, something happens. Unfortunately, against the Lions, it just didn't come down in our forward line enough for him to have an impact. He did kick a goal, but didn't get enough of the pill in important areas, and it was the same against Richmond. He had a lovely crumbing goal, which was the highlight of the game. It teased us fans, showing us what he is capable of, but he just wasn't involved enough, which is frustrating because if he gets 10 plus disposals a game in the VFL, they will be good ones. He will help the team. He's a really clever player, just needs to build some confidence. And we finish with our project player, Anthony Munkara, the one we as fans are all excited about. It's been an up and down little period for the guy. He had a really quiet game in round 7 against Werribee. He will have a few like this where he only gets a couple of touches and struggles to find himself in games, but the round after was really promising. It looked more of the same early into the piece. He struggled to get involved in the forward line until he was moved to half back and had some really exciting moments. He looked as comfortable as he had when the ball was coming towards him. I think it was his best game, if I'm being honest. Only the 9 disposals, but his evasive skills and chase down pressure were on display, and the week after we saw him look just as comfortable with the ball coming down his way in the forward line. He kicked 2 early goals and had 10 disposals for the day against the Tigers, so this has definitely been his best period. He has shown a lot to love over the last couple of weeks. He is honestly progressing faster than I thought, but still, we need to be patient. He is still very new to this style of footy. So that is that. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with these videos and everything Essendon, and have a splendid weekend.